you've heard that voice, the one that tells you not to send the message, not to take the job, not to trust someone. Sometimes you ignore it. Sometimes it keeps you awake until 3 in the morning. Don't pretend you don't know the one. I used to think that voice was the enemy. It's not. Carl Jung believed it wasn't a symptom or a glitch or something wrong with you. He believed it belonged to someone, a guide standing in the dark of your own mind since before you could talk. But here's the secret. 3,000 years before Jung, the Greeks already had a name for that guide. They knew why you can meet a total stranger and feel you've known her your whole life, and why that feeling is actually a warning. Her story is the story of that feeling. You meet someone, and somewhere in the first conversation, you feel it. Like you've known her your whole life, like you've been waiting for her without knowing you were waiting. And you think, this is it, this is the one, and maybe it is. But here's what nobody tells you about that feeling. It might not be about her at all. It might be about the voice, the guide, the one who's been standing in your mind since before you could talk, finally wearing a face. Tonight we're going to follow that voice to the end of its story, the myth that gave it a name, the mechanism that makes you fall for the wrong person, keep the feeling and lose them anyway, and why the voice was never the enemy, it was the way out. The story starts 3,000 years ago, in a palace built over a maze. You met the maze last episode. The labyrinth, the monster at its center, the hero who walked in. This episode, we follow the one who stayed outside. Her name was Ariadne, daughter of the king, sister of the monster, and in the oldest versions of the story, she wasn't a princess at all. Her name, the scholars say, comes from words meaning utterly holy, the most holy one. A name like a title, a name like a goddess. And in the earliest layers of the myth, that's exactly what she was. A goddess of the labyrinth, before the labyrinth was a maze. Here's the part the polished versions leave out. The labyrinth wasn't built to confuse people. The spiral was carved into the walls of tombs across Europe and Asia for thousands of years before the Greeks told the story. The maze was a door to the underworld. The center was a grave. Go into the labyrinth and you are walking into the land of the dead. That's what the symbol meant. And the only thing that lets you walk in and come back out, the only thing between you and being swallowed by the dark, is the thread. Every culture that had the spiral had a figure who held the thread. The fates who spin the threads of life, the goddesses of weaving, Clotho spins, Lachesis measures, Atropos cuts. The thread was never decoration. It was the technology of the soul. And yes, Jung is coming. He's not here yet, and that's deliberate. The Greeks understood this long before he named it. He spent his life catching up to a myth. So we're letting her speak first. Now, the moment of the gift. Not as a story this time, the way it should be seen. The traveler reaches the labyrinth, stops. The dark looks back at him. The thread in his hand trembles. He breathes. He looks back. And a woman silently places the thread into his hand. She says nothing. She doesn't come with him. She stays. And here's a detail most versions forget. In some tellings, what Ariadne gave the hero wasn't a thread at all. It was a crown, a lighted crown. And that crown had been given to her by a god. Thread or crown, the myth can't decide, and maybe it doesn't matter. They're the same gift, worn differently. Light you can follow, a line you can hold, a way back from the dark. She gave the hero the god's light, and then she stayed outside. This is the part to hold on to, because it's the whole episode. The guide does not go into the labyrinth. She stands at the entrance, holding the other end of the line. She can keep it taut. She cannot walk the maze for you. He turns to the entrance. The dark breathes. He steps inside, and the thread unspools behind him. One unbroken line back to the light. Somewhere at the other end, she's still holding it. Hold that image. It matters later. The hero walks in. The monster is met. The thread is followed back, and the story should end there, with the two of them sailing home. But the myth doesn't end there. This is the part nobody tells you, the part that makes the whole story a map of your mind. Because the hero, the one who walked in, the one with the thread, was going to do something unthinkable, something the myth has never forgiven him for, and something that happens to you in a small, quiet way every time the projection breaks. Before we get to the betrayal, we have to meet the guide properly, not as a myth, as a person. In 1913, a Swiss psychiatrist sat down and started listening to the voice in his own head. His name was Carl Jung. Jung was 38 when he broke with his teacher and found himself standing in front of a dark that would have ended most men. Instead of running, he sat down with a blank red book and started writing down what the dark said. What he found after 16 years of writing in secret was a person, not a voice in his head, a figure, a woman in his case, an inner figure who appeared in his dreams, his moods, his paintings. He gave her a name from the old psychology, the Anima, the soul image. A word before we go deeper, because this gets misread constantly. The anima isn't a woman living inside a man. If you're a woman, the figure takes another face, the animus, the inner masculine. The mechanism is the same. Everyone has an inner opposite, and it runs your love life whether you know it or not. Here's the cleanest way to say what the anima is. Jung called it the archetype of life. It's the gut feeling that screams yes before your brain can find a reason to say no. The part of you that connects before it judges, that knows what you actually want before you talk yourself out of it. And Jung's own measure of how hard this meeting is. He called meeting the shadow the apprentice work of psychology, meeting the inner opposite. This he called the masterpiece. The shadow is a fight. The anima is a relationship, one you can win. The other you have to learn. Von Franz, the woman who spent her life listening to Jung's dream diaries, said the anima unfolds in stages, like a person growing up. And here's the part I love. The stages have faces, real faces from the whole history of the West. First Eve, instinct, the body, the pull of life itself. Then Helen, romance, beauty, the world of feeling, the one that writes the songs. And between them, von Franz placed a figure most people skip. The hetaira, the companion you exchange poetry and philosophy with, the one who is both lover and mind. Mary, devotion, something sacred in love, higher than the body. And last, Sapientia, wisdom, the one von Franz said the Mona Lisa comes nearest to, the face that knows. Have you noticed the stages climb? Eve is a body, Helen is a feeling, Mary is a devotion, Sapientia is a face. The guide grows up the way you did, from the body to the face that knows. Which one are you stuck at? Be honest, most of us never make it past Helen. But here's the warning, von Franz added, that nobody repeats. The stages can get stuck. A man can stay at Helen forever, chasing the feeling, never meeting the person, or worship the ideal, terrified of the real. The perfect anima holds both the earthy and the sacred. So what does the guide do in your life? 3 things. If you can stand the answer, she colors your moods, she fuels your creativity, and she decides who you fall for. The third one is running your love life, and it's the one we're taking apart now. Think about the last person you couldn't forget, the one from 6 years ago. You replay the conversation. You remember her laugh perfectly. Now, what was she actually wearing? You can't remember. The mind keeps the feeling. It quietly deletes the person. Jung put it better than I ever could. He wrote, "Woman always stands just where the man's shadow falls, so that he is only too liable to confuse the two. Then, when he tries to repair this misunderstanding, he overvalues her and believes her the most desirable thing in the world. That's the impossible familiarity. You feel you've known her all your life. You have. She's been in you since before you could talk. The recognition is real. The target is borrowed. And here's where the inner figure gets its first face. For most of us, the guide is shaped by the first woman we ever knew, the mother. If that love felt safe, the guide inside is gentle. If it was missing or tangled, the figure becomes a hunger, and you spend your life feeding it to strangers. Not blame, just the map. And this is why the feeling survives the person. You fall for the image breaks, the person leaves, and the feeling stays, because it was never about the person. It was about the image, and the image is still there, waiting for the next face. Viewers told us this in their own words. One wrote, "The woman he loves is always more beautiful and more perfect from a distance. Distance keeps the image intact. Closeness lets reality in. And reality is the one thing projection cannot survive." And the guide's own warning, the effect of projection is to isolate you from your environment, because instead of a real relation, there's now an illusory one. You're not in love with her, you're in love with the shape she casts, and the shape is yours. Pause. You've just met someone. You barely know them, yet you're already imagining a future together. Where did that future come from? Did they give it to you, or did you? Now, before the myth shows us what happens to the projection, let's do what this channel does. Let's put it to the test. 4 symbols, no labels. One of them is the thing you're actually in love with. The mirror, the thread, the closed door, the mask. One of these has been shaping your life for years. Which one? Don't answer yet. Hold it. The myth is about to answer for you. Keep your answer in your head. We're coming back to it right now. The betrayal. The ship sails, and on the first night, they stop at an island called Naxos. Ariadne falls asleep, and in the morning, she wakes up alone. The versions disagree about what happened next, and the disagreement is the point. In one, she dies of grief. In another, she hangs herself. In the oldest, Homer's, Artemis kills her. Every version agrees on one thing. Being left is a death. The opera that retells this, Strauss's Ariadne of Naxos, opens exactly at this second. She wakes, he's gone, and she sings the line, "Every person who's been left understands, I will never love again, and because of that, I will never live again. And here is where the myth stops being a story and becomes a map, because what the hero did next is the part that should make you pause. He didn't just leave her. He sailed home and married her sister, Phaedra. The same palace, the same family. The hero who couldn't hold the image in one face simply moved it to the next one. That's what the projection does. It doesn't go away when the person goes. It finds a new face. How many people have you done this to without noticing? The same figure wearing a different face, different name, different city. And you said, this time it's real. It wasn't a new person. It was the same image, looking for a new target. It looks like a betrayal in the story. In your life, it's the moment the mask slips. You're not leaving a person. You're leaving the version of them you made up in your head. Now comes the part that changes everything. Ready? The desertion is necessary. The guide who kept the thread for you, the image you projected onto a person, has to be left on the island for the real thing to have any chance at all. The mythologist who wrote the deepest book on Ariadne, Christine Downing, put it with terrifying clarity. The desertion by Theseus is necessary, she said, so that the relationship to a god, a Dionysus, becomes possible. The image has to die for the divine to arrive, and a viewer told us this in one sentence without any theory at all. I didn't start loving my wife until she left me. I love her now, years later, more than when we were together. The break didn't kill the love. The break was the beginning of it, because here's the mechanism, and it's the kindest thing in this whole psychology. Projection isolates you. It replaces a real person with an illusion, so the only way back to a real person is through the break. The image must fall for the human to be seen, and the myth completes the thought. Ariadne doesn't die on the island. A god finds her. Dionysus, the god of madness and wine, everything the hero feared, takes her hand, and in some versions, he makes her a goddess of mazes, married to the god of the wild. Remember what I said at the start? Her name means the most holy one. She was a goddess before the story demoted her to a princess, cut up into wife, maiden, helpmate so the hero could deal with her. The projection didn't just shrink her, it shrunk her name, and she was waiting the whole time for him to stop looking at her. This is the answer to the icon challenge, by the way. You were never in love with the person, or the mirror, or the mask. You were in love with the door, the life the figure promised. And the door was always yours, before the practices. One thing, because this subject touches real pain. This is philosophy, not therapy. If the feelings we're talking about are hurting you, or someone you love, that's worth taking to a real person, a counselor, a therapist. The myth gives you a map. It doesn't replace the walk. So what do you actually do with this? 2 practices, and they're not about getting rid of the voice, they're about finally hearing it. Practice 1. Fix the feeling in a form. Take the image that haunts you, the mood that owns you, the face from the dream, and put it somewhere real. Write the letter you'll never send. Draw the face. Compose the line, and treat it as real. Not only a fantasy, real. I tried this once. A letter to a face I couldn't stop thinking about. 3 pages of things I'd never said, and on page 2 I realized the letter wasn't to her. It was to the part of me she'd woken up. I never sent it. I didn't need to. Practice 2. The dialogue. Sit somewhere quiet. Close your eyes. Let the figure appear. The one from the dreams, the one with the voice you've been arguing with, and then do the thing you've never done. Ask it what it wants, and listen. Jung called this active imagination, and the first time the figure answered him, she said something that stopped him cold. She refused to be studied from a distance. You want me as an object, she said. You can't study the soul like a specimen. You have to meet it. The voice in your head isn't the enemy, it's the guide. It's been trying to get your attention since before you could talk, and it's been ignored so long that it started showing up as strangers. Every person you cannot forget was carrying a piece of your own soul that you hadn't been willing to meet. And here's where it lives today. The negative anima, von Franz said, is the impulse to dream about life instead of living it. Sound familiar? The infinite scroll is its playground. Every feed is a fantasy of a life you're not living. Most people, the artists say, are quietly desperate. Stuck in jobs they don't like, living lives they never chose, with the unlived life growing louder in the back of the mind. That voice isn't a problem to fix. It's the one part of you that never agreed to the compromise. And if all of this feels like it's about some old-fashioned idea of men and women, it's not. The anima and animus are names for the inner opposite. Whoever you are, however you love. Every tradition has this figure. Ariadne, Beatrice, who led Dante through hell. Sophia, the wisdom of the Gnostics. Shekinah, Shakti, the guide with the thread, different names, same face, and now, the ending of the myth. The one that should be the most famous ending in all mythology and somehow isn't. When Dionysus took Ariadne as his bride, He took the crown, the one she'd given the hero, his own gift, and threw it into the sky, and it became a constellation, Corona Borealis, the northern crown, forever visible, every night. The guide who was abandoned became the sky. The one he replaced with her sister is the pattern you can still see tonight if you step outside and look. That's the whole episode in one image. The projection breaks, the person leaves, and the thing you projected, the soul image, the voice, doesn't die. It becomes visible. It becomes the sky you steer by. It was always going to end in the heavens, not the bedroom. And this is the deeper point the whole series is building toward. The myths aren't decoration. They're not fairy tales for children. They are how the soul gets its shape. The word for it is psychopoesis, soul-making. You don't learn the myth makes you. Ariadne isn't a princess from 3,000 years ago. She's a name for the part of you that holds the thread, the part that stays outside the maze and keeps the line taut while you go in, the part that knows the way out and cannot walk it for you. You are not supposed to destroy the voice. You're supposed to stop feeding it to strangers. The person who opened the door was real. It was never meant to become the entire path. The feeling was the guide's. The walk was always yours. The ancient marriage at the end of the myth says it best. Not finding someone to fill a void. Two whole individuals, freely choosing. The projection ends when you stop looking for your soul in someone else's face and start meeting it in your own. And now the circle closes. You thought this story began with a woman. It didn't. It began with a voice. The voice became a guide. The guide became a thread. The thread became a doorway. And the doorway was always leading back to you. So the voice in your head, the one you've been arguing with, ignoring, feeding to strangers, it was never trying to ruin you. It was trying to save you. It was holding the thread this whole time, waiting for you to take it back. Next time, the voice changes. It gets older, wiser. It stops whispering and starts speaking like someone who's seen the end of the road. The wise old man, the figure who appears at the bottom of the labyrinth when you've stopped pretending you know the way. Tiresias, the blind prophet who saw everything. That is next time on Mindscape Philosophy. This is Season 2, Jungian Mythology. Tonight, the thread is in your hand. Tomorrow, you follow it.